everyone, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Lydia King and I create videos on sewing tips, tutorial and hacks. I would always say that sewing clothes can be very fulfilling. Clothes actually make up 50% of what we have in our wardrobe and our lifestyle. People would always say, oh, you make this, oh, I would actually love to make my own clothes. Well, I'm here to let you know that you can. In fact, I'm not a professional here. I recently started this YouTube channel and I don't have all the answers, but I have been sewing for a while. And if you're here, meaning you actually want to learn how to sew your own clothes, and that's what I'll be sharing here. A few tips and general overview on how to get started. Right now, I think 50% of what I have in my wardrobe is handmade. I would love to make almost all my own clothes because I feel like it's very cool when someone sees you and compliments you and I'm like, oh, I actually made it myself, and they're like, oh cool, that's nice, I wish I could actually make my own clothes. For me, it's cool that you can actually make your own clothes. I started sewing when I was a kid. We had a sewing machine at home, so that made it even easier. My mom would always encourage me to pursue my creative mind. In fact, I started mending and like adjusting clothes. Like when my mom gets me new outfits, I will have to adjust it or like tweak it to actually make me feel cool when I wear it. After a while, my mom saw that, oh, I actually enjoy sewing, and then she was like, okay, go to a fashion school, go and learn how to sew. So that's when I decided to go to one of the fashion designing shop that was around my house, and then I started learning how to sew. This happened during one of our strike in the university, and because of during this strike, we didn't actually know that this strike was going to last that long. It actually lasted for 3 months. So we're still waiting at home to see, oh, if they were going to call it off. This was later, my mom was now like, okay, go and learn how to sew during this time. And then I went to learn how to sew. It wasn't even up to 2 weeks. They called off the strike and I had to go back to school. But before then, I'd already learned a bit, so I was able to start sewing clothes for myself, for my friends and my relatives. With that, I started sewing, and you know, when sewing is, as you're sewing, you're also learning, and then you also get better in whatever you're doing. So that's how I got better. I went to Lagos for youth service. During my youth service, I was very intentional because after my service, I had to go to work, and where I was working were basically fashion houses because I really wanted to learn. And it was a thing that it wasn't even just a love, it was a passion, and there was this drive that really wanted me to learn more. So I was working in fashion houses. That's where my passion grew, and afterwards I had to stop and then go to fashion school. So I learned sewing for 3 months actually, because COVID happened, and then you know we had to stay at home, so I didn't go back to learn. So all I later learned was on YouTube channel. I was watching videos and then practicing and everything. Afterwards, that's how I got better. And then, because you know how sewing school is, they give you like the basic, like if you have the basic in sewing, to be honest, you're going to know how to sew. So because I already had the basics, so it was very easy for me to, you know, continue sewing, and that's literally what happened. I'm going to like share a few tips on how you can get started with sewing. First of all, you need a sewing machine. With your sewing machine, you can actually, in fact, you could sew with your hand. Actually, you can do hand stitches, but then it will take you forever to finish an outfit. So that's why we have sewing machine. You can actually go for the manual sewing machine, or you go for the electrical. The electrical works with light, which makes work easier. The manual, you know, it has, I think some manual sewing machine has an electric motor that you can actually plug and work with it. When I first started, I was using a manual sewing machine, the manual butterfly sewing machine. This was very handy as I was learning, and that was like the best option for me. I had used this for a very long time before I decided to get another sewing machine. I later went for the portable butterfly sewing machine, which I had created an unboxing video on how I purchased the second one in my YouTube channel. So please, you can just scroll through the videos and watch it there. By the time I bought my first portable electrical butterfly sewing machine, I was ready to invest in a better sewing machine, and that's why I got it. So as a beginner, you can actually get a manual sewing machine, or you can invest in the portable sewing machine, whichever of them works very well. with that, you can actually use this to learn before you can decide if you're going to invest in a bigger or an industrial sewing machine. In this sewing machine, you can find them in different places. You can go for the thrift type ones, do you get, if you don't really have enough money to purchase a new one, or you can work with a friend that has one to just start, or work with a colleague, a family member that has one. Then you can save towards getting your own, but you actually need a sewing machine to get started. Well, to start sewing, you need some basic tools to start sewing. I created a video on the basic tools a beginner needs to start sewing, but I'm going to just inform you like on few of them that you actually need to start. First, you're going to need something to cut your fabric with. You need a pair of scissors. Scissors comes in very handy because without a scissors, you cannot cut your fabric to sew. So you need a scissors, and if you're working with pattern, you actually need a paper scissors. So you don't use your fabric scissors to cut a paper because it gets it blunt and then you can't use it again on the fabric. It makes the work stressful. Another tool you would need is a cutting table. So a cutting table is very important because you will need somewhere to keep your fabric to cut. You can actually keep it on the floor to cut, to be honest, because I know when I started I was cutting on the floor before I got a cutting table. So yes, you can either invest in a cutting table or you can cut your fabric on the floor. It's perfectly fine as long as you're cutting, as long as you know you have somewhere to place the fabric to cut. That's perfectly fine. Oh yes, you'll need a seam ripper. Seam rippers are very, very important because you would say, oh, I'm going to sew, I'm not going to do mistake. As a beginner, you're going to do lots of mistakes. When I started, I did a lot of mistakes, and then I was using razor to cut, and then you know when you use razor, you might easily cut out a piece of the fabric that you're working with. So you need to invest on a seam ripper. It's very important because you use it to rip out unwanted seams that you have made, and it makes your work easier and makes your work neater. You will need pins. As a beginner, you would need pins. You would need, even until date, I use pins to work. Why? Because you would need something to hold your fabrics together before you start sewing. Honestly, sometimes when you're working, you will feel like, no, let me just join it and everything is good. If you use pin, it holds your fabric together and it makes the work so much easy. Invest in the pins and maybe pin cushion where you can place your pin. You can easily put it in a container, add powder, magnets to make it last longer, or you can easily invest on a pin cushion. That's fine. So you need pins to hold your fabric together, especially if you're working with silk fabric. Till date, to be honest, working with silk fabric, I still go through the stress of it. Working with pin makes it so much easier. Needles, you would need needles. Needles, you need your machine needle or your hand needle, because there are some things that you would need to sew with your hand, to be honest, especially if you're working with clothes that you need to attach appliques or you need to join something to the clothes. It's always nicer to use needles, to use your hand to stitch it in than using gum. Or you need a measuring tape. Yes, measuring tape is very important because without measuring tape, you cannot measure anybody. So you actually need a measuring tape because with measuring tape, you can easily use it to take body measurement. You can easily use it to transfer the body measurement to your fabric. In fact, measuring tape is like one of the basic tools that you work with like 24 hours when you're sewing. You work with it. You don't drop it. You have to put it on your neck, keep working with it because you keep taking measurements as you're sewing. Also need your ruler. Rulers are very important too, as if you're making outfits that need a longer length, you would actually need ruler to actually measure the length, because sometimes you want to join a particular point from the waist to the length of your outfit, and then it's quite long, so you can't just use your hand, and you will want to get a straight line. So you also need your ruler, either short or long ruler. But also need Tailors Chalk. Tailors Chalk is very important if you are not doing pattern. In fact, even if you're doing pattern, you need your chalk because you use this to mark point fabric. It's very important. So you invest in a Tailors Chalk. You also need pattern paper if you're going to be working on pattern. I would always advise people that are starting to work with pattern, to be honest, because it makes the work easy, because you would easily do all your correction and manipulation on your pattern paper before you transfer it to the fabric, and it makes the work so easy that you don't have to like do correction, and it reduces error in sewing, to be honest, because you've already corrected everything on your pattern paper before transferring it to your fabric. So please invest in a pattern paper. is very important. The other tools that you need is thread. You need a thread. Thread is so important. Without thread you cannot sew, to be honest. So yes, because you need thread for your sewing machine. If you're using a hand needle, you need thread for your hand needle. You need thread to hold the pieces together. So please invest with the basic threads are black and white, but then the thread depends on the color of fabric that you're working with. So if you're working with a blue fabric, you need a blue thread. If you're working with a green fabric, you need a green thread. So with this basic tools, I think you can easily start sewing. So all you have to do is to thread your machine. If you're using a manual sewing machine, you just start threading. If you're using an electrical sewing machine, you plug it to the socket and then you thread it. It's very easy. I think most of these sewing machines, they come with manuals, so they'll show you how to thread your sewing machine. So you can just follow that, the detailed description of how to do that, and then you thread your sewing machine. After threading your sewing machine, you can set the stitch you want. When you set the stitch you want, you can start sewing. It's as easy as that. While sewing, you can easily adjust the knob of your sewing machine to actually achieve the different tension that you want. If you want it to be loose, you adjust your sewing machine to a loose stitch. If you want it to be tight, you adjust it to a tight stitch. So that's basically, you just keep, in fact, when you keep sewing, that's when you become very good in it. You don't just wake up overnight and you're like, oh, let me sew, I'm going to be a professional. No, you just keep practicing on different pieces. When you keep practicing, that's how you become better. We have fabrics, to be honest. Let me just talk a little bit on fabric. We have like linen, we have crepe, we have cotton. In fact, for me, those are like the easiest fabric that you can start with. You can start with cotton, you can start with linen. Crepe is easy to work with. You can start with that. With that, you can easily work with them before you graduate to other fabrics like silk, like denim and all. So working with cotton, linen, it's very easy to work with those fabrics. So I feel like you can start with that first to sew like different little pieces for yourself. We've come to the conclusion of this. I'm very sure that watching this video, you are ready to sew. And please remember that practice makes almost perfect. So you just have to keep practicing, perfecting your craft, and you're going to be very good in it, and the world is going to hear about you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, like, comment and share my video. Until I see you in my next video. Bye.